So we're going on Daf Ayin Hamid Bet. It's towards the bottom of the page. And once again, it deals with, this Mishnah and next Mishnah deals with when you take things out to carry, they have to be of utilitarian nature. So in other words, if I have something that's so small that it serves no purpose, min ha-Torah, maybe midrabanan you can't take it out, but min ha-Torah, you're not going to be liable because it's not something that means anything. So if I were to take out, I don't know, a grain of sand or a grain of sugar, right, that would not be considered carrying. So what's carrying? It has to be something that's usable. Depending what the item is, if it's food items, it's going to be, the Mishnah will talk about the next Mishnah. But if it's an item that's not an edible item, it has to have some kind of utilitarian use. That's where the topic of these next two Mishnayos, and it's the Gemara goes through what can be used and how you can mix things together. What happens if you have two shiurim and so forth. So v'yod klal echad amru. Okay, this parak has called klal gadol. And that's because the previous Mishnah began with listing a klal gadol of the different melachos that we had, and therefore there's another klal. So the previous klal was a big klal. The beginning of the Mishnah, beginning of the parak talked about what if you forgot Shabbos completely? How many averos would you be liable for? And then the Mishnah that followed after that was simply listing of the 49 malachos. Didn't really have a klal, but at the very end it says arba malachos chaser achas, and then this one says there's another klal. So the first Mishnah said klal gadol, and this Mishnah we're reading said there's another klal, the klal that applies to many cases in Shabbos. So that's just a comparison. It'll come up when we go back to the beginning of the parak when it talks about why it's called klal gadol. V'yod klal echad amru kol hakosher le'atzniya umatzniyan kamahu. If you have something that is an object, a type that you has a benefit, umatzniyan kamahu, and this amount of the object you people normally would store away. So it has some value, it's utilitarian that you'd normally keep. It's the kind of thing that you just wouldn't use because you found it lying around. You really would store it. That's what called latzniya. Doesn't mean that's got to be hidden. It means it's the kind of thing that you would keep because it has a certain amount of value. For example, you finish eating and you put away leftover food, right? But inevitably when you see there's little krishkalach, little crumbs, you're going to throw them away. Now, you saw a piece of bread, let's say it's your own family, so you're not worried about where it's coming from. A piece of bread, you may want to consider using it or storing it or for vegetables and so forth. Right? If you have a half a salad left, you put it away. If you had one half piece of lettuce, you may want to throw it out. So if it's kosher latzniya matzniyan kamo, and you would hide this or keep this, v'yotziu b'Shabbos chayav chatas alav, and this is the amount that you carried out on Shabbos, you chayav chatas. On the other hand, if it is v'chol she'eino kosher latzniya, if something is not normally used or put aside, v'ein matzniyan kamo, and this amount is not going to be put aside, v'yotziu b'Shabbos eino chayav ela hamatzniyo. So normally people don't really put this aside. So if you take it out and you actually did put it aside, then you yourself would be chayiv, but someone else would not be chayiv. So in other words, we're saying there's really two variation here. Normally people do not put it aside, right? But I did, and that's why I'm taking it out. For me, this is important. I'm very marginally. I want to keep 3 grains of sugar. Okay, so when I carry it out, I'm going to be chayav. If on the other hand you carried it out, you would not be chayav. So in other words, what we're saying that the only person who would be an exception to this rule is if the person himself were to be different, that he would want to keep it hidden. He would want to store it. Otherwise, we normally have a rule. What would people normally keep hidden? How much sugar would you normally be concerned about spilling? How much normally sugar would you put aside? A teaspoon? Teaspoon, right? A teaspoon. So therefore, if it's a couple of grains, you would not be concerned about it. Maybe a person who had different dietary needs and only a few grains of sugar would be important to maintain certain balances, maybe he would be careful about that. So that's what the
concentration camp it would be. Oh.
Right.
So I don't mean to.
Correct. Right. There you go. Okay, people in different circumstances, but let's try to keep it into the same society, because people have different kinds of needs, and therefore it might be this might be. We'll see the exact opposite case in the Gemara itself. But normally, in other words, there seems to be one value that society would say this is what people normally carry out for. We're going to see this in the next Mishnah, which will be in about 20 lines, what exactly some of those items really are in terms of animal feed. Okay, so the Gemara says like this: halacha-theory. When it says that something was usually going to be put aside, so there are two things. One, it has to be utilitarian, and two, it has to be of the amount that this utilitarian item would be utilized. Right. So, but in other words, there seems to be two things here. One, the item itself has to have a use. There has to be some value to it. And second of all, then there's a sheer what the value is. Right. So, what could have no value? What would there be in this world that has no value? So, regardless, would make even a large amount would not be considered any use. So that's the Gemara says. Doesn't everything really have a value? Some kind of utilitarian use. So the Gemara gives two answers. Rav Papa Mar lafuke dam nida. Okay, so the dam of a nida, what would they normally do with that?
Well, there's no use.
There's no use, right? There may be first of all maybe an abhorrence. It's waste. Remember, in many cases, waste, right, that was recycled as fertilizer. Right?
Urine to wash stuff. I forget that.
Correct. Yeah.
Get that for what?
Absolutely.
Right. Well, it has an acid in it. It's correct. So what would have absolutely no use whatsoever? So the first answer is that the dam nida. Okay, it sounds like a strange kind of answer. Mar Ukva gives a second answer. Lafuke atzei ashera. So atzei ashera, right, is an ashera tree, which has no value, is worth nothing, and it was avodah zara, and I guess they still had them lying around. It's something that you could find. Right, you can't recycle it. You can't use it. You can't even climb an atzera tree. You can't even use the stuff that comes off the atzera tree. So that's completely invalid. So those are two things. One may be more common, but the second one really has no value. It has value, right? It is a tree, but it has no value in a halachic society. It's completely asur b'hana. So in other words, the difference between the two, the first one is something that actually has, in terms of value, minimal utilitarian value or use. And the second one is, it could have utilitarian value if not the fact that you were Jewish. But the fact that you are a member of the Jewish faith community, the Asherah you have no benefit whatsoever. Like chametz, you can't have benefit from on Pesach. Right? Except this is completely asur all the time.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah?
Is a shera a type of tree, or is shera a tree that's designated?
It's a tree that's designated for avodah zarah.
Could
be any kind of tree.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So I don't know there was a specific tree. I suspect that different societies use different trees for different purposes. So the Gemara points out the difference between them. Man di Amar dam nida, kol shekei atzei ashera. If you say the dam nida has no purpose, and that's the example, then surely an atzei ashera has no purpose. In other words, if you say, give me an example of dam nida, then you would say as well that an atzei ashera would have no value.
Sure.
Well, why? So why not give the answer of atzei ashera? Maybe it wasn't as common.
I would think it wouldn't be.
Right. Maybe it's not as common as dam nida. Right. On the other hand, man di amar atzei ashera, the person who says that we're talking about atzei ashera has no value, has no utilitarian nature. But dam nida does have. What does it have? So matzna le l'shunra. So matzna le l'shunra, that you would you put aside to feed a cat. Okay, so in other words, that they would use it in some kind of animal feed to feed a cat. Now this sounds kind of ridiculous for us, correct? But in the society where everything is recycled, it makes a lot of sense. It's high in protein. Okay,
Absolutely.
okay, high in blood value, iron probably.
The shunra is in Chad Gadol.
Yes, it is. Correct. That's the same one. Correct. That's there you go. There you go. Holiday material. So in other words, the atzei ashera, while it looks like it's more valuable, there's no value whatsoever because it's asur b'hana. Even though it looks like it has value, halachically it has no value. The value is 0.00. On the other hand, dam nida, while it looks like it's abhorrent and has no utilitarian nature at all, can be given to the shunra, right? Now the Gemara says, so v'idach came in the chalsha lo matznalei. So what does chalsha mean? Becomes weak. So Rashi says that when you feed a cat dam nida, you become weak. Now there are Rishonim that say the cat becomes weak. Okay, I don't know what. Don't try this at home, okay? But Rashi says beferish, right? That the hamachol dama adam lechatul nasa chalash oso adam.
Wow.
Okay, if you feed blood, give human blood to a cat, the person becomes weak. I don't know why. This goes into the whole group of different. Not Kabbalah, it was medicine and refuos and remedies that we don't know how they work or if they worked or when they worked in the days of Chazal. But apparently this was what Rashi understood it to be. As I told, there are some Rishonim that say the other way around. It's actually the cat becomes weak, which may make more sense to us, though it really makes no sense why a cat would become weak from eating dam nida and anything else.
The human would become,
Right. The human makes no sense either,
That's what I'm saying,
but neither does it for the cat. Right, we don't even know what they're feeding cows when the cows are eating their.
Mad cow disease came from.
Right, they chop up cows and they put cows back into the feed.
Yeah.
Right, the cows are herbivores.
If
They don't,
the dam nida is going to make the cat, why would anyone feed it to their cat?
because a weak cat is better than a dead cat that has nothing to eat.
What? That's
Learn
true.
to catch mice.
Mice, exactly. That's why we have the cats.
It's a bad season on mice. They're out of mice. Cats cleaned up all the mice. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. No, you surely. Why would you want to become weak? Makes no sense either.
Yeah, for sure. Sure, that makes absolutely.
You could say that some of these remedies are not guaranteed. They're Masechah Shabbos later on in the one of the Prakim talks about different remedies. It says if you have jaundice, try this. And if this doesn't work, try this. And if this doesn't work, try this. And if this doesn't work, try this.
Today.
I was going to say modern medicine.
Correct. But none of the remedies seem to work for us. Would seem to make sense from a medical perspective. But then again, holistic remedies are sometimes very different.
People, yeah.
So it's possible that there was a feeling that depending on the type of cat, or sometimes the cat got weak. Not every cat got weak. So you're going to bet that your cat won't get weak. First, we don't even know if it's your cat, right? I forget in Chazal what a cat is viewed as. Is a cat viewed as sly? Cat is not.
A cat is viewed as sneers.
Yes, but it's something else. I know it's viewed as sneers. Yes, because it takes.
It's kind of a metaphor for sneers.
But among the animals and the other characteristics, it's something else as well. I forget. I don't remember it being like all that good. So it's more.
We have today with the kind of medicine where they have like diluted like once.
Right, poison, homeopathic, correct.
So we have it today, right?
Right. So I have to assume that they had a tradition. Let's assume it's the cat, that if they gave the cat dam nida, 1 out of 100 cats got weak. The other
sick anyways.
Right, probably half sick.
No, what I mean is they didn't look double blind. They looked at life differently. It's like you said, they fed it to some cat that was probably sick anyways, and the cat got sick, and you go, look, because you did this, that's why.
Real statistics weren't invented till later.
No.
Or the other thing is, you're trying to get rid of this dam nida, right? What did they do with all this stuff? They didn't have plumbing like we did, so the way to get rid of it was the local wild cat. You gave it to the wild cat. But on the other hand, if you were an animal rights person, you wouldn't want to give it to the local roaming cat because it would get sick or get weak. Weak is weak. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It may just get weak and then it bounces back. But at any rate, so the point of it being that of the two, believe it or not, the Asherah is the least utilitarian of the two. Okay.
Right, absolutely.
Amar Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, Haid Lok Rabbi Shimon. This statement of the Mishnah, which seems fairly simple, it's not like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon Amar Lo Amru Kol Ashir Malolo Ela Lematzniehem. That in other words, only the people who hide these, who are going to hide them, are really going to be the ones who are chayav for. It's not one value, one share for everybody. It looks like it's going to change depending on the individual itself in terms of what the person himself will be hiding and how much they will hide. So if you hide it, it may be chayav for you. If I don't hide it, I can't say that I'm going to be chayav simply based upon the fact that other people hid it themselves. Okay? All right. Now, v'chol she'ena kosher latzniya. Rav Elazar. So this is the second half of the Mishnah. Hadlok Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. This doesn't go like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. The last thing was not like Rabbi Shimon. This is not like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. The Tanya. Klalam Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Kol she'ena kosher latzniya. If you can't hide it, you can't use it at all. V'en matzniyin kamohu. And you wouldn't put it aside. V'hochshul lezeh v'tzniyo. U'ba'acher v'yotzio neschayv zeh machshavo shazeh. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says as follows: If the society says a teaspoon, right, and less than a teaspoon that you don't keep, right, but you want to keep half a teaspoon, so for you to carry out half a teaspoon, you'd be chayev. For me to carry out half a teaspoon, I'd be patur, or I'd be mutar. So, but if you ask me to carry out the half a teaspoon for you, I'm now going to be chayev. From our Mishnah, it would only be what I said before, right, that only the person who hides the half a teaspoon would be chayav for carrying it out. Right. So that's the disagreement between the end of the Mishnah, between the Shita of Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon. So I'll read again. I'm Rabbi Elazar. Hadlok Rabbi Shimon he. The Tanya Klalam Rabbi Shimon Elazar Kol she'ena kosher latzniya v'ein latzniyin kamahu. No one puts aside this much. And some guy came along and he was machshir. For him, he puts it aside. V'tznio, and he kept it. And someone else came. Oh, I know what it means. I didn't say it exactly correctly. You put it aside. Then if I take that out, even if you didn't ask me to, I'm chayiv. The fact that you put it aside means even if I carry it out, I'm going to be chayiv.
It was your intention.
Right. So normally the rule is this is what everybody keeps. If it's kept less, it's not my problem. But when Rabbi Shimon Elazar says if you keep less, it is going to make me chayiv as well. Okay. It's a little bit pikiyun. Now we come to some tachlis things. Okay, next Mishnah. Hamotzi teven. These are all items of taking out for animals. Hamotzi teven, kamale pi para. How much teven, how much straw do you have to take out? As much, what's the minimum amount that a person would use? Like you say, a teaspoon of sugar is the minimal amount. So the amount that you're going to fill the mouth of an ox, mouth of a cow. How much is that? I don't know.
Must have been an amount.
Okay. Probably, yeah, like a big handful, probably. Yeah. Okay. Remember, the cow will chew it and then regurgitate and keep chewing on it for a while. Kamale pigam. Eitza, or eitza is straw from lentils, from beans, bean straw. I'm not sure what bean straw is. Bean stalks. Okay. Yeah. Like Jack and the Beanstalk. Okay. So the beanstalk without the beans in them is going to become fodder. It's not human, right? So they fed it to camels. Camels were more hardy, and also probably they required a lot more food. Okay, so there's a greater shear than pipara. So what if I carried out? Let's stop for a minute. What if I carried out the amount of eitza, bean straw, to fill up the mouth of a cow? Would I be chayiv?
It sounds like it's less.
Right, it's not enough.
Too much.
It's less. Cow's mouth is smaller than a camel's mouth, I believe.
Yeah, let's say it is, but I took out, which did you say I took out? I took out a larger amount.
I took out a small amount.
I see. I took a cow's worth of camel food, let's say.
Right. In other words, I need more straw to feed the camel than I need to feed a cow.
Right.
Okay. Right. So that's so eitza kamali pi gamal. Eitza kamali pi gamal. Amir. What's amir? Amir is wheat stalks. Right, wheat stalks. So kamali pi tled. This is for the mouth of a goat, of a sheep. Okay, lamb's mouthful. Asavim. This. Yeah, this is a real society. Is what they live with. Okay. Right. Correct. Let's remember Chad Gadya is probably much later than this Gemara. Okay.
You have to feed these animals. The idea being feed them before Shabbos.
Correct. But if I carry this out on Shabbos,
Well, I'm saying
I have to feed them. I have to feed them on Shabbos.
I was going to say they have to eat on Shabbos too. Yeah.
Right, but I can't. But I would put the feed into the barn where I'm not carrying it outside. So no, you don't have to. I can't carry. But here's talking about carrying outside, or from inside to outside. Pitla. So it says pitla. Asavim kamali pigdi. If I have grasses, it's the amount of a goat's mouth. Okay. Ale shum vale betzalim. These are leaves of garlic leaves, and onions, right? I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, that was bad. So if they're lachim, if they're moist, and those are edible, so then the mashir is kogrogros. A grogros is a dried fig or date, I forget. Fig. It's a dried fig. Okay. Right. So that is a shear for humans to eat. The grogreris is a shear that people would normally eat because moist, shum, and betzalim are human food. Okay. Like today. Right. I know you think of taking the garlic that's dried, it's still moist. If you buy raw garlic, it's not completely desiccated. The outside is desiccated.
Are they thinking here about? So this has nothing to do with the animals now, is it?
Well, it comes back to animals. This is a different type. So if it's moist, it's for people. So then the smallest amount is a grogeris, a dried fig, which is not that big. Yevashim, if they're completely dried out, they didn't use them in those days. They probably had no taste, or they considered no taste. Kamali pigdi, there was the amount that would fit into a goat's mouth, okay, which is bigger than a grogeris. Okay, so these are the different shiurim, and then the Mishnah says at the end, that you can't combine half of a cow's mouth and half of a cow's mouth of straw with half of a camel's mouth for bean straw to make a full shear. There are different kinds of shiurim. So in other words, if I can't eat food or for example on Yom Kippur, so if I had half a shear of one food, half a shear of another food, I could combine them because it's the same shear. It doesn't have to be only one ingredient. I can combine ingredients. But if the two things have different shiurim, right, they may not be able to be combined. For example, can you combine on Yom Kippur a half a shear of, let's say, a kazayis you can't eat on Yom Kippur? I have a half a kazayis, and then how much can I not drink? I think malei lugmav, right, a cheekful. So what if I have a half a cheekful and half a kazayis? Do I now say I've reached the shear? The answer is they're different shiurim. There's actually a discussion in the Rishonim, but it looks like they're mostly different shiurim. So I can have a half of this and a half of that, and I still haven't reached the shear, right?
How do they pick like certain things?
This was the feed.
Or something only a goat would eat it, a cow wouldn't eat it. Like how do they?
This is the smallest amount that they would use to feed an animal. So the goat looks like it. The goat is a fairly small. It's got a narrow mouth.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
So in other words, for example, I believe all of these items, probably except for the shum and betzalim, were specific to these kind of animals.
So these were what these animals ate.
Right, correct.
Okay.
So I'm not sure could you feed a cow bean stalks? I don't know.
No idea. I don't know.
Probably if you had to, you could, and maybe they preferred a certain.
Correct, but this was the natural food that they fed them. Okay, I mean the Gemara is fairly straightforward at this point. So my eitzah. So let's look at the Gemara. My eitzah. What was eitzah? This is what we had. What I told you is beanstalk. I'm Rav Yehuda. Tevan shemine kitnius. This is a straw of kitnius. Kitnius was beans. Kiyasa Rav Dimi Amar Hamotzi Tevan Kamali Pipar Legamal. If a person, gets back to the example I gave you before. You have teven, right, and you have the amount that you're going to feed a para.
Right.
But you're feeding a gamal.
Right.
Okay? So the amount is really for a para. If I was feeding a para, it'd be chayav. But I'm not feeding a para. I'm feeding a camel. Which is less than
the camel wants.
Which is less than the camel wants. Correct. So the camel's mouth is bigger than the ox's mouth. So Rav Yochanan Machayev Rav Shimon Lageshem Patar. So first he says, who says this? Rav Dimi said. First he said that the machlok is between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish, whether you're going to be chayav or pater, right? Because it makes sense. On the one hand, I took out the shear for the para. On the other hand, I'm not feeding the para. So you can understand both of the tzaddim. So that's what he said at night. Beurta. I'm sorry, Beurta Am Rav Yochanan Hachi. At night, not Rav Dimi, but Rav Yochanan said is chayav. Let Safra, in the morning, after he said this, that he argued against Rish Lakish, Hadabei. He retracted what he said. Okay? So, Amrish Am Rav Yosef, Shapir Avad the Hadabei. Rav Yochanan is good, he retracted the halacha-theory l'gamal. Because what he took out is not good for the gamal. So, it's good for a para, but he wasn't feeding a para. So, why would Rav Yochanan say it's chayav? So Amalei Abaye Adraba can make kara mistabra. No, what he said the first time around in the evening is good. Why da chazil para? Because it is good for a para. So the fact that he's feeding a gamal should not detract from the objective nature of the fact that this is good for a para. So in other words, they went back and forth. Did Rav Yochanan really say it, or did he mean it, or did he not mean it? Right. Okay. So Elakiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, now remember Rav Dimi and Ravin, we've told you this a number of times, are the Nechusi. They travel back and forth from Eretz Yisrael and Bavel. So when they would return from Eretz Yisrael, they would bring the news of the latest thing that they heard from Rav Yochanan. So Rav Dimi was earlier than Ravin. So when Rav Dimi came along, he said, this is what happened. Rav Yochanan said it, then he changed his mind, and then they argued back and forth in Bavel, and one said it was good, he changed his mind, the other guy said it was good, he didn't change his mind, he shouldn't have changed his mind. Then came along Ravin and said, no. The case was there's a different halacha. Kiyasin Ravin Amar. Hamotzi Tevin Kamale Pipara Lagamal to Kuliyam Alo Pligi Dechayev. Nope. In other words, if you took out the amount to feed a para, but you're feeding the gamal, everybody says you're chayev. Why? Because objectively, that's good to feed a para. Right. The fact that you decide to feed a different animal doesn't detract from the fact that this amount is utilitarian in nature to feed a para. Ki pligi, where was the machlokas between Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish? In other words, not only did you not get it right whether he changed his mind or not, it was a different case. Ki pligi b'motze eitza kamali pi para la para. No, the other way around. You took out bean straw to the amount to feed a para to feed the para. In other words, when the Mishnah talked about bean straw, how much were you taking out to feed?
Normally for a gamal.
For a gamal, but you're feeding a para, and you took out bean straw, which was the enough to feed a para, which is less than the Mishnah was talking about. Right? Normally, you would take out this much straw to feed a para. Right. Normally you take out this much bean straw to feed the camel. Right. You took out this much bean straw to feed the para. So that's the machlokas. Keep ligi b'motze eitza kamali pi para la para. V'yebcha etmar. And Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish are opposite from what you thought in the previous case. Rav Yochanan amar pater, Rish Lakish amar chayev. Rav Yochanan says pater, Rish Lakish said chayev. Why? Because what does the para really eat? What's the para used to eating?
Tevin.
Regular straw. So the fact that you're bringing out now bean straw, it's not really what the para wants to eat. It's not what it's used to eating. Right. So therefore, you're not really bringing the food for the para, right? It's achila idei Rav Yochanan amar pater, achila idei lo shma achila. Rish Lakish amar chayev, achila idei shma achila. No, it is considered eating. The para will eat it, won't be happy, but it'll eat it. So that's the machlokas. So the first way the machlokas was taking out straw to feed a gamal, right? Right. To have it right? Taking tevin to feed a para to feed the gamal, right? So that we said surely going to be chayav. The reverse case where I'm taking out less than the shear to feed a smaller animal, that's the chilai de'et chakanak. Okay, so therefore, that's because each of these animals had a specific kind of food, fodder that they wanted, that they were used to eating.
Which is a standard amount, right?
Right. What it doesn't really discuss is what if I took out bean straw, the size of a camel's mouth to feed a para? So we would assume you're chayav.
Chayav, yeah.
Right, because just carrying out the bean straw, what if I carry out the bean straw and don't feed an animal?
Doesn't matter, you're still chayav.
Right. So let's say I have no animal there. I get that there's no animal. Right. I carry out a bean straw full for a camel's mouth and I don't feed the camel. I'm still chayav.
Absolutely.
So if I carried out bean straw to fill a camel and I fed the para, I'd still be chayav. Right? Because I carried that amount. The case was the reverse. I carried out a smaller amount of bean straw to feed the para.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, it sounds kind of funny for us, but this is the society they lived in. Okay.
In fact, the Mishnah doesn't talk at all about which animal's going to eat this. It's just giving us the size,
Right,
the
the
quantity in relation to the size of the mouth of the animal that would normally be fed that
Yeah,
Yeah.
food.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes, correct. You're right. I guess I assumed when I read it that there was an animal waiting to be fed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
or people were doing this for some kind of reason.
Well, probably in most cases they were, right?
And the discussion in the Gemara suggests that,
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct,
exactly.
correct, right.
but the Mishnah doesn't.
The Mishnah is right. The Mishnah is just giving you shiurim because the Mishnah is really building on the previous thing, which is about kol hakosher latzniya v'matzniyim
Right,
kamol.
exactly.
Right. Okay, good, thank you. Next little short piece. Amir kamale plitle. So Amir is this. What do we say? Amir is wheat stalks. It's to feed the tle. This is the sheep, right, which is bigger than the goat. V'yatanya k'grogros. We have a brisa that says how much is carrying out from wheat straw. It's a grogeres, a dried fig. So the Gemara says idivi dichat shiori. Oh, guess what? It has to be the same thing. The amount to feed a sheep's mouth is equal to a volume of a grogeres of a dried fig. Now, why did it say dried fig? Because dried fig is something that's normally used for feeding people. Right. So sometimes different shiurim were equal, but refer differently to different industries and as well as different ways feeding animals or people.
The grogeres we have elsewhere as being a shear.
Yeah,
I mean, several places.
correct.
it
But it's
comes
all
up.
about human consumption.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
What I'm saying, it's like it's a known size.
Correct.
It's like a kazayas.
Right.
Everyone knows a kazayas is whatever size a
Remember when
kazayas
there was
is.
So-
the machlokas and Elam Metzias, it's the minimum amount of fruit when you identify it as a Gregoris.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
the minimum.
Okay.
When you're trying to identify
Whose it is.
the person who's claimed that's
Right. In Perika Oreg, there's something similar. I don't know if I can find it. Oreg talks about weaving. So it's talking about the size of a piece of cloth. And it ends up being a tefach. They use a different term, and so it's really because they had different terms in the clothing, in the cutting industry, in the weaving industry than they had for other things. It was a certain, I don't remember exactly what it was, but also different industries had different usages, had different names for the same kind of thing. So the grogeres here is basically something for people, and the animal fodder was shaped by the size of the animal or the type of animal. Okay, then the Gemara said, the Mishnah said, "Alei shum v'alei b'tzalmim lachim kegrogres v'yiveshim k'mali pigdi v'yimitzarfim zem emnei shlavu b'shir reihem." Okay, and you can't combine different types of half of a. I couldn't say if I carry out half of a pi para of teven and half of a pi gamal of eitzah that I've now done a full share because they're different kashurim. So this Gemara is going to talk about combining different shurim together. So what seems to be from our Mishnah is you don't combine shurim.
Right.
The Gemara says it's not so simple. It's never so simple, right?
I was going to say, exactly.
Okay. So Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina.
So when you're saying in the Mishnah, you carry out such and such an amount, what that means is on one trip. Then you
Yes.
can go back inside and get some more and bring out the.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yes.
That's the shear
Correct.
for Hotzah.
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
You're not
Right.
carrying it outside, are you?
Well, you could be. You're carrying it outside.
no difference.
Inside's
When
not
you're
a
carrying
problem.
outside or carrying 4 amos in Rosh Hashanah, it's the same thing.
If you carry it inside your barn,
Right.
from one end to
It
the
means
other,
carrying it
it's
from
not
the
a problem.
barn, carrying it from the barn into the field. Okay, you're carrying from the barn into a public area. Right. So I guess you could do that. Yes, correct.
If your animal's really hungry.
If you don't want,
Well, Tsar Balei Chayim, you gotta.
you gotta
I mean,
feed
you
the
gotta
animals.
so you have to feed the animal. You're supposed to prepare for it. Bring the
I know,
animal.
we
Bring the
tried,
animal
but,
inside.
you
Bring
know,
the animal inside.
Things happen, whatever.
Bring the animal inside. This okay.
Bring them inside.
Right. Okay. So
Shabbat's not a problem to bring an animal in because you're not carrying them. Good.
correct. Well, that's fine. The animal has to eat. Right, and catching a domesticated animal is not going to be tzad.
Yeah,
Right.
We talked about that. Okay.
Carry a camel.
Carry a camel. Well, camels are pretty rough animals. Okay. Very tough animals.
Camel's a horse designed by committee.
I heard that, exactly.
Well, anyways, all right. The Gemara talks in the El Ksharim about knots, and knot has to be a kesher shel kayam, but there's also something called kesher shel uman, a very defined craftsman's knot.
Yeah, like a sailor knot.
Like a sailor knot. So the two examples, one is a sailor's knot, and the other is a camel's knot. The knot was, they put sometimes like a piece of leather, which they put through the camel's septum,
Right.
and they tied it. Okay, and that had to stay forever, because you don't want the camel to get out, and then they would tie a rope to that.
Yeah, like a
Okay,
ring.
but that's an example of something that has to be really rock solid, because camels you don't want to fool around with. Right, in the same way with a boat, you don't want the boat rolling away.
You want to loosen up.
Right. Okay. At any rate, let's see what happens with combining shiurim. Okay. Aim starfin. I'm Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina. Aim starfin lechomer shebahen, avam starfin lekal shebahem. Okay. In other words, well, you can really combine them, but you can't combine to the bigger shear, to the larger shear. Okay. So therefore, let's see. So if I had a shear, I had some teven, and I wanted to add it to the bean flour to feed the gamal.
You
Okay.
can do that, is what you're saying, or no?
That I can do.
Right.
Here's the concept. Think of it that the straw is more concentrated in its feeding to the cow, and getting the job done, because they have a smaller amount to feed the cow. Right? To feed the gamal, I've got to need a much larger amount. So let's say I take a half of this amount of bean straw, and I combine it to the half of para straw, regular straw, and that would make me to the full amount of straw to feed the cow.
Yeah, but
Assuming achila ideatcha is achila.
you're not over any shears because each one is less.
But that's exactly the point. If I combine it to the lower shear,
Right. Still going to be less.
it's still gonna make the shear. It's gonna make the shear.
Oh, you can add them together? I thought you said you
You're
couldn't.
saying if you add the lesser one to the big one,
Let me see if I got it
the
right.
big
No,
one,
you
The
said
Safri Meir Lashlim and Pir Pora.
half the big one and half the little one's going to be less than the whole big one.
Achash Mashlim is a culture. Oh no, I got the other way around. The other way around.
you
I have it backwards.
you
Okay.
can combine
I have
shears.
it. So Rav Yosef Bar Chanina says it depends how it is. You can. Here we go. This is the amount of straw I'm supposed to feed a camel. Okay, but I only have half the amount.
Right.
So in place of bringing half of the straw, I bring half of the
Another
shear
Another shear.
of the para, which is smaller,
Smaller.
right?
Right.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me back up again. Okay, I have this. I have this again. I have this. I'm supposed to bring this amount of bean
Right.
straw for the camel,
Right.
but I only have this amount of bean straw.
Right.
I'm missing this amount of bean straw.
Right.
So what if instead of putting bean straw in this half, I put in regular straw?
Right.
Okay.
Should I be chayiv or not?
Depends if you can combine them or not.
So Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina says I can combine them, because you see normally the shear for regular straw is much smaller.
Right.
So now I'm barely combining it to make a larger amount. So sure, I can use that. What I can't do is the other way around.
Right.
If I have let's say this is the amount of straw to feed the para. I only have half of it of para straw. What am I going to fill the other half with? Camel straw. But I need much more camel straw to be equal to the amount of para straw. So that will not work. Am I confusing people? You're confused.
I'm trying to figure it
So
out.
what you're
Last
saying,
little
if you take two half shearim and put it together, it becomes a whole shear. But if you take a half and a quarter, it doesn't.
No, if
Right.
you take,
Is that what
depends
you're
which
saying?
half.
What I'm saying is that the para straw, the regular straw, is considered more concentrated because I need less amount in order to make the shear.
Okay.
Okay? So half of that shear is less. So if I bring half the shear for the gamal, it's worth more than the bean straw to feed the gamal.
Like you're saying, like the amount of rice to fill up a bag is much, much more than oats because they're flaky. So oats would be up to here, but the amount of rice would
correct.
be so much
But that
more.
assumes that they come up with
smaller.
correct. That's pretty much similar to the idea. In other words, let me try to think about how to make this look well.
Need a drawing first.
I need a drawing.
If you take two halves,
I'm assuming volume.
Volume.
Most of these things are. I'm assuming they're volumetric measures.
Yeah, right, because it talks about enough to fill the
Right.
mouth.
Correct.
So we're talking volume.
So in other words,
but you don't know the exchange rate.
very funny.
No, I'm not joking. You don't know the rate of it. Like if you take half a shear and half a shear, you get a whole shear. But you don't know the exchange rate. If you take half and a quarter,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
So in other words,
half and half, you have a whole shear, but of what size? Of the gamal or of the cow?
let's make it numbers. Okay, let's make it numbers. Okay, let's say in order to feed a para, I need 1 liter
Right.
of food.
Okay.
Let's say.
To feed a gamal, I need 2 liters of food.
Right.
Okay, how's that? Okay,
Right.
so instead, I'm supposed to have 2 liters of bean straw to feed the gamal.
Right.
But I only brought 1 liter of bean straw.
Right.
Now, what do I need for the other half? I need 1 more liter of bean straw. What if instead of putting in bean straw, I put in 1 liter of regular straw?
But you're already over the shear on that.
I put too much?
Because 1 liter of
Because you're already over
And
the
now
shear.
I've reached it.
conversion ratio for the bean straw, for normal straw is higher.
Correct.
You get more, the cow gets more energy, the camel gets more
but that's-
energy out of
Correct.
it.
That's exactly what Rabbi Yosef is saying. So in other words, instead of bringing one liter of bean straw and another liter of bean straw to make 2 liters of bean straw, being 1 liter of bean straw and 1 liter of regular straw, which has got a bigger oomph because it's more that's why I mean it's more concentrated.
Okay.
It's a smaller amount for the cow.
Okay.
So Rabbi Yosef says that's going to work. That I can be mitzaref. What can I not be mitzaref the other way around? Instead of bringing 1 liter to the cow of regular straw, I bring a half a liter of regular straw, and then I bring another half a liter of bean straw. That's not going to work.
Okay.
You underfed the cow.
But
I'm underfeeding the cow because the cow is not getting enough. Because normally for bean straw, it's got more roughage and more chazarayim, more nothing in it. You got to have more of it. So it's not just that the camel's mouth is bigger. The camel is eating more junk, right, just to keep it full.
But now we're bringing in, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying, we're not just dealing with the numbers now, we're dealing with the concentration of the, so that's
Yeah,
a
you
whole.
like a conversion
That's
rate.
another-
I'm not joking.
I'm not saying no,
You're
I'm
a
saying
conversion
that's a
rate.
second
It's
concept.
called a feed
Right, which
conversion
has a
ratio.
whole
Right, it's a feed conversion ratio, correct.
I'm
Right.
saying
That's
that's a
what I
whole
meant.
different-
Okay, but that makes sense. Okay, does that make sense? So once again, let's do it again. So in other words, the Mishnah seemed to say the difference you can't combine them. Okay, so Rabbi Yosef Rebbe Chanina says it depends which way you're combining them. If you're combining them up, right, or he calls it more machmir or something, but this is the way to make it sense. This is how Rashi explains it. If instead of bringing 2 liters of bean straw to the camel, I brought 1 liter of bean straw and I filled the other half with a liter of cow straw, which is better because you see the cow gets less. That's shear. The other way around is not going to work. If I have half a liter of cow straw and then I need a half a liter of bean straw, the cow's getting cheated.
So the first one is permitted or it's not permitted?
The first one is going to be chayav.
Chayav.
The first one is going to be mitzaref.
Okay.
Okay.
But yes, mitzarefim or ain't mitzarefim?
So he says, so aim mitzarefim l'chomer shebahen. You can't combine them for the chomer, which I guess means the cow. Of mitzarefim l'kal sheben, but the one that gets more, he's calling that kal. You need more to be chayav. You can be mitzaref. Okay. So that's Rabbi Yossi Rebbe Chanina's opinion. That mitzaref can work one way if the shiurim are not equal, right? And that seems to be disregarding our Mishnah, but it's really qualifying the Mishnah. Okay, we agree with that so far?
Sure.
Not sure. Yes, you in? Are you?
If we accept the rate of exchange question, yeah.
I'm in, but I have a question.
Yeah.
In the first example you gave with the 2 liters and the 1 liter, the 1 liter for the cows is already over the shear, is already the shear. So your assumption is that
So,
you're not on any one of those.
I'm not over it, right?
So
Correct.
you're saying you're not over it, but it adds
Because
up,
you're bringing
okay.
it for the camel.
Why?
No,
I'm not over. Okay,
No, you're
right,
not over
right.
any individual
So I'm not
shear.
over any individual
Okay,
shear.
fine,
Change
that's
the
good.
number so that works
Yeah,
out.
fine,
Okay.
fine, I
Yeah, a
got you.
little bit.
All right.
Okay, a little bit. Okay, fine.
Okay, so it could be 2/3 and 1/3.
Yeah,
Doesn't we
whatever,
have
I
that?
got you.
Okay. Right. So that's exactly how Rashi explains, and that's really makes sense. So, but the bottom line of this is, and this is the chiddush, and that's why you're all struggling with this, that it's not exactly what the Mishnah says. The different shiurim cannot combine. Different shiurim can combine, provided that the second half of the shir that you mix up with, add to it, it's got more of it's more concentrated or more oomph or whatever it is, right? So that works one way. But there are cases, therefore, that you can be mitzdaref different shiurim. That in itself is a chiddush. That's what the Gemara challenges now. So the Gemara says, "V'chol lo shaveh b'shiurayhu mi mitzdarfen." If things don't have the same shir, can you really combine them? Okay, and it brings a case from zav. Okay, the zav can be metame something by sitting on an object, or midras by leaning on it. It's tumas midras or tumas moshav. So what happens if I have different things that the zav sits on? Has to be certain shiurim to be considered a seat. How big is a seat? In other words, to be considered a sits on it or leans on it. Okay, so the Mishnah says habeged gimel al gimel. If you have a seat, I think it's a seat, right? That you have a seat of the 3x3, 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. Sock, the smallest amount of sock, which is made of, I think it's goat's hair, right? Is dalad al dalad, 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. The or, and if you use the skin, it's a skin seat or skin thing that they're sitting on. Hey al hey, 5 by 5, and muffets is, I forgot what muffets is.
Reed.
Okay, it's a reed. Is 6 by 6.
Like a mat, a reed.
A reed mat. Okay, so all of these have different shiurim to be minimal sizes that you'd make to be some kind of piece of bed or furniture that the zav would sit on. Okay. V'tani Allah. And we learned on this different shiurim, habeged ve'asak, asak ve'or, ha'or ve'amefetz, mitzdarfim zeh zeh. You have different items, different fabrics. The beged, which is cloth, and sak, which is made of goat's hair, or goat's hair and leather, or leather and reeds, mitzdarfim zeh zeh.
So just before let's take those examples of those 4 kinds of material.
Right.
And what are we saying? We take a piece of one, a piece of the other, and how big does it have to be?
How big does it have to be for
3, 4, 5? Do we know the answer? Or
it says each item is different.
I know, but I'm saying, mistarfin means I thought.
So mistarfin means now I have this complex fabric, which is made of shmatis. So instead of having 3 by 3, I have 1.5 by 1.5 of beged, and I have another 1.5 and 1.5 of or.
Right. And what's the total though? At the end,
the total is either going to be 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 or whatever the shiurim are going to be, but I can combine them.
And does it matter then if it ends up 3 by 3 or it doesn't?
So it looks like it does, but on this the Gemara is going to once again qualify that it's only going to apply in a certain case. So this looks like it combines, but what do we learn on this? The Amar Rav Shimon. When can I combine them? Matam mipnei sheruim l'tamei moshav. Because it can be, because I can combine them, for example, and to sit on them. And the Gemara explains it's actually talking about a saddle. So when I combine a saddle together, I don't really care what I'm sitting on. So in other words, the two of them can combine because on a saddle, you can have different kinds of fabrics matched together. So normally, it wouldn't work when you match them together. But if it has some kind of utilitarian nature where you combine them together, and on a saddle, they would patch the saddle up with different pieces. The saddle was probably made of leather. If the leather wore out, they only had, let's say, reeds around or fabric around. They'd put it together. When I sit on the saddle, I don't really care what I'm sitting on. It's not like sitting in my living room on a couch that I have of one nature of one fabric. I combine them together, so because they combine them together normally in the saddle, this saddle is going to combine them. When can they combine? When I'm dealing with an object that they normally work together in.
When it says that we can always combine, the issue is, surely, what we're talking about is if a zav sits on that object.
Right.
That's what we're talking about, right? In other words, unless they're saying it's illegal, asur to combine leather with...
no.
I wouldn't imagine it's illegal. So
right.
the only question would be then, if you did combine them...
It's got to be the larger of the two shiurim. So I have Right, it's beged is 3x3, and sock, which is made of goat's hair, is 4x4.
Right.
I have a 4x4 piece of cloth.
Right.
2x2 is made of goat's hair,
Right.
and 2x2 is made of beged.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the Mishnah says is mistaref, and on this Rabbi Shimon says the only case that it's mistaref is where it's actually utilitarian used that way.
So otherwise, if a zav sits on it,
Otherwise, if
Well,
the
not clear. That's the part
zav
of-
sits on it, it's got to have each item separate because normally each of these items was used separately. They don't normally combine unless it was a unique case
right.
of the saddle where they all combine together. They may put little stitches into
Right.
pieces.
We don't know the answer, presumably, if people decided, for whatever reason, not on a saddle, they decided on a carpet, whatever. They decided to have a couple of different materials sewn together to make a mat, let's say. Right? We don't know the answer, I presume.
So
the zav sat on that thing, whether...
So what the Gemara says, so actually what the Rabbi Shimon is saying is yes, he would be chayev because we have the opportunity that these things are normally melded together in a natural form because it could be and it is, so therefore it is. So the bottom line is what comes out of this, and it's a little complicated, but what comes out of this is that the only time you can mistarif different shiurim is where we know they were combined. If you can show that they were usually normally used and combined, such as it was natural and common in a saddle to combine them together, then even if it's not a saddle, I can combine them together. Because you see that the combination is a natural combination. Now normally, when it comes to feeding animals, we don't normally combine them. The cow gets its food. The gomel gets its bean straw. The sheep got its wheat straw. Right. This animal got its shum. Right. You didn't normally combine them together. So if that's the case, the Gemara says, how can Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina say that you can combine them for the larger amount of straw? Right. The bean straw. If you matched up the liter and a liter, that it does work. The only time you see it does work is if you normally do combine them together. Such as where you put it onto the mardad, you put it onto the saddle of the donkey. So the saddle was made of leather, it had patches of garment, it had patches of reeds, it had patches of goat hair. So therefore you can combine them because you see they all do combine naturally in the normal course of events. But if they don't normally combine, you can't combine them. Or I can't say chatzi shir.
Right.
That's the Gemara's question. People look at me like we don't have a full answer. In other words, yes.
I want to carry out the shear of the size of a cow's mouth.
Yes.
And the shear of tevin, right?
Right.
And I want to carry out also the shear of the
Gamal.
for the gomel.
Right.
Can I carry the two of them together?
Sure. We're talking about the minimal amount that you be chayiv. The minimal amount you have to carry to be chayiv. You can always carry more.
Right, but if I... Oh, okay, fine, right.
Okay,
Now
right.
I understand. So it's the minimum...
amount
For which
that has utilitarian use and people normally use. So normally when I feed a cow, I feed it one mouthful. That's the normal...
At least one mouthful.
At least one mouthful. At least one mouthful. Now that's one carry. Okay, now maybe I want to go back and feed the cow again. Right? But the minimal amount...
But you can take two mouthfuls.
Yeah, I can take two mouthfuls, right? I can take two mouthfuls, I can take a whole pile. But if I take less than one mouthful,
You waste
Then you're not chayav.
then I'm not chayiv, because I didn't bring out enough of anything that's normally substantive. If I'm left at the end of the day, after feeding the cow with a half a mouthful, it goes out. I'm not going to store a half a mouthful. Because the next time I got to come out, I got to have a whole mouthful for the cow. So therefore, it's considered like I got a couple of crumbs on the table. So this is the minimal amount that I have to carry. We normally don't think in these things, right? You normally reach into your pocket and say, oh my goodness, I have a handkerchief. You don't say, do I have a handkerchief that's small, big enough and small enough? How big is the handkerchief, right? These are the kinds of, or I've got something else in my pocket, whatever it is. But that's what we're talking about. How much is the minimal amount that you have to carry to be chayiv a carbon chatas min Torah for the Easter of Hotzah?
Right.
And then the Gemara said on that, what about chatzi shir? Can I combine two chatzi shears? And the Gemara initially said you can't. And then Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina says, well, it depends which I'm combining them. If I'm combining them up to be larger, and I took something that's normally smaller and I brought a larger amount for that to match up to the large amount, I'm chayav. Right? It doesn't go the other way around. The bottom line is I can combine them, even though, and here's the even though. Maybe I didn't say this clearly enough. When I combine them and I have that 1 liter of bean straw and 1 liter of cow straw, I still plan to give half 1 liter to the camel and 1 liter to something else, or not at all. Each of them on its own is still a chatzi shir, but they combine. Because the cow straw is considered more concentrated or better, it only needs small amounts. But the bottom line is, even though they really serve different purposes, and I normally would not feed the animal the 2 types of straw, right? And in fact, if I did, it's just like a chilai de etchak, it's not normally done, nonetheless I can combine them in certain cases. On this, the Gemara says, we see a similar kind of case, so we extrapolate a similarity to the case, where we have different kinds of fabrics. And each fabric has got a different minimal amount. Because fabric or baguette is a natural fabric to make a chair out of, or make a garment out of, or sit on something. So I need a smaller amount to put my hinton down on it. On the other hand, if I'm making it out of reed straw, it's much bigger. If I'm making it out of leather, which is less pliable, maybe it's bigger. But the Gemara says I can combine them. Why? Because they are combined in a case on the saddle. Zayt ice, you see from this, the only time you can combine things is where there's actually a use of them together. If I wouldn't have an example where they were combined on the saddle, I couldn't take a chatzi shear of cloth and a chatzi shear of reeds and a chatzi shear of leather and say that now the zav is metameyit. Because each one alone is not considered a normal fabric for the zav to lean on. But only because they work together.
Look at the language of the Mishnah.
Yes.
Hamoitzi teven. So a person who takes out
Carries heaven, right?
It's chayav. It's chayav.
Where does it say chayav?
It's understood. I'm sorry. Okay. It's a continuation of the previous Mishnah, which talked about kol kosher letzniya matzniya kamo v'otzia b'shabbos chayav.
Otherwise, well, what's the verb?
Yeah,
what's the verb?
In other words,
verb in there?
this Mishnah about motzi teven.
Before it talks, if you do this, you sin offering.
Right. So the next Mishnah afterwards is which talks about caring for people is also going to say chayav. So it's all squashed in together. So it gives the rule in the first Mishnah. The next Mishnah is giving the examples. So it leaves out the word chayav. It's understood. This is what it means. What is the shear to be chayav? Mali pi para. What's the shear for this? Mali pi gamal.
So if I carry out less than that amount,
You're okay.
You're not chayav min Torah.
You're not okay.
If you take out less than this year, you're okay.
less than
What do you mean no? You're
Right.
not chayav.
It's chatzi shear.
No, you've got to take more.
It's chatzi shear, which we say is part of Avalasar. Okay.
You take out.
Awesome Torah doesn't have an onish. Probably awesome Torah.
If you take out a handful of straw, that's okay.
What if I eat a chatzi shear on Yom Kippur?
You're right.
It's the same thing.
Because
What you can do
it's not utilitarian.
It's got no value.
Right. This is a general question about every shear.
Therefore, you are or you're not chayav. If you take out a handful of straw, just a handful, not a mouthful,
Right.
a handful,
So you're not chayav min Torah, correct?
right? You're not chayav. mina.
You're not chayav.
It was less than the shear.
Less than you take out a half a
it's
mouthful
considered
of
like a few
straw,
grains of-
half a mouthful of straw for a cow.
It's not. You
You're not-
are liable.
You are not liable.
Because it's like a few grains of sand, apparently, or
Right,
whatever, or salt, or
But
something.
if you take out enough to feed the camel,
The cow.
Whatever.
or whatever.
Whatever.
Right, then you are
Then
chayav.
you're
Then you are
chayav.
chayav. It's considered like carrying. I said, what makes this unusual? We normally don't look at this in terms of carrying, right? We can't. Oh, I see. The time's up. So we normally think we're carrying, and then that's it.
Right.
But the same way that every Isser has a shear, like on
Right.
Yom Kippur, right?
Yeah, like
Same
I
thing.
say,
If a
the
person,
diet can-
if a person has to eat on Yom Kippur, they should eat less than the shear, right? Okay.
Rabbi, how about if you have, when you take out for a mother or father, a
Yeah.
larger animal, which wouldn't make up the shit, but you feed their children.
So it doesn't make a difference what I do with it. Once again, I don't. What if there's no cow?
right.
Forget the mother and child. There's no cow.
Much carrying.
Right.
How big a thing
Okay.
you have to carry to be guilty?
It's 9:35. Can I have a minute to finish the Gemara? There's one more line, okay? Okay, because we got so far, okay, and then the topic will change again. Sorry, okay? If it's okay with you. Bottom of Ayin Vav Man Aleph. So the Gemara says, 3 lines at the bottom, Matam, that if you combine them, it doesn't say on the saddle. But the Rashi and the Gemara there explained it's talking about a case on the saddle where they can combine together.
Right.
So the Gemara says, "Time doing l'tamei moshav." When do you see they combine? When they see it can be tamei and combine them when they do combine. Aval ein roi l'tamei moshav lo. But if you didn't have an example where they would combine together to make a tamei moshav, which is the stuff on the saddle, they would not combine. So how can you say I take a half a thing which I'm going to feed the camel, and half a thing might feed the parah, and if it's a large enough shear, it's going to work? They're different animals. I don't feed the same thing to the same animal. Okay? So the Gemara gives a very simple answer. Hachinami chazye ledugma. Where do they combine? In the display case. There's a display case, believe it or not, okay? There's a display case where the person who's selling all the fodder displays all his fodder. Okay? So he has, in this display case, he's got regular straw, and he's got a cow straw, and camel straw, and this straw, and he's got all the shiurim.
Right.
Because he wants you to see how much you're going to say. This, you get this amount for $1. This amount for $2. So the Rashi says that's what ledugma means an example. Rashi says if you're going to sell it, so vermi kulam v'nosei lefnei chalon, he puts in his front window leharos sheish lo limkor mikulam, and he wants to combine them together. He wants to have them all there, because he wants people to know that he's a full service feeder vendor. So you do combine them. So because you do combine them together. For that purpose, you can combine them as well for carrying out on Shabbos. Okay, that's the case. The same way that the saddles is an example of where you can combine for Tumah, because they do part sew them together, so too as well, you can combine different fodders. You didn't think that people who dealt with this. Okay, that's a surprise answer. Okay, next week we will finish this off. There's a very short piece of Gemara, it's very simple, and then we'll go to the beginning of the 7th parak, which is very different. Okay, good.
Okay.
Rabbi, thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.